normalizing research, education, having books all around, just reading constantly. These are the conversations that I'm going to be having with the future Dr. Ayana Shakir on this episode of Real Reading Talk. Please stay tuned. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Reading Talk. I am your most gracious host, Ms. Seisha, and with Real Reading Talk, I discuss the real systemic issues that are at the very core, the very foundation, as to why we have low levels of literacy in the Black community and the ways in which we can combat these issues together, y'all. Yes, indeed. What's going on, everybody? I hope that you are doing absolutely phenomenal. And I am just super duper excited, y'all. Oh my goodness, because I have a dope guest on my show today. All right. And we're going to get into a little deeper into how we actually connected. All right. But I'm going to tell you guys, she is doing great things. She is in the city of St. Paul. That's right. I was thinking, I was like, okay, no, it's Minnesota. I'm like,
Yeah,
St. Paul, I believe. That's right.
yeah.
And her name is, I'm going to put on there, future Dr. Ayana Shakir. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sister Seisha. You too, like you said, you're gracious. You're very gracious. The things you said about me, I appreciate it, and I appreciate you having me today.
Yes, definitely. Well, I just have to let everybody know. And of course, she's going to explain more about it. And when I was saying future doctor, because she is a doctoral candidate. All right. So, inshallah, God willing, she is going to be getting her PhD. And I want her to explain after she gives us a little background of herself about what she'll be getting her PhD in. And how we connected is that she had actually asked me to be a participant in her research. I had never, ever been asked that before. So I was like, first of all, I was like, wait, what? I'm like, okay. I'm like, it sounded real important, of course, because I'm like, she's, applying to become, get her doctorate degree, right? Candidate. So I was like, I knew that was big. So when she asked me to be a part of that, I was like, oh my goodness. So I would love for our future Dr. Ayana Shakir to tell us about herself.
Okay, thank you so much for the beautiful introduction. I'm Ayana Shakir, and I was born and raised in St. Paul, Minnesota, which is the twin city of Minneapolis, Minnesota. St. Paul is the capital, but everyone knows about Minneapolis. So they're really twin cities. They're next door neighbors, maybe 10 minutes, 5 minutes, depending on where you go from one another. And but my parents are originally from the South, from South Carolina, different states. I mean, different cities in South Carolina. So my siblings and I, there's five siblings total. So our background, our roots are in the South. We used to go to the South mostly every summer growing up, and so we have a strong connection to the South. Let's see. Like I said, I have four siblings, three sisters, one brother, and I am kind of like the oldest or middle oldest because growing up it was just four of us, and then we met our sister, and so I would say that my brother's the oldest in our household, and he and I were 13 months apart. So I'm kind of like the oldest, but not so.
Yes.
So I have many roles, I guess. It depends on who I'm interacting with. Um, but we grew up in the city of St. Paul. And St. Paul has really changed since I was a little girl. Um, we have a huge now we have a huge influx of immigrants, so it's very the city, even the whole state now is becoming more diverse. But the cities of St. Paul, Minneapolis, and the metro area is very diverse. It's more a lot of people of color, a lot of backgrounds, in particular from Somalia, from the Hmong population, from the mountains of Laos, of course, African Americans, American Indians. but a little bit of everybody. So you see a lot of different diversity wherever you are in the schools, Target, like we talked about a little bit earlier, Walmart, everywhere you go, at least you see someone that looks like. Um, but however, I would say the system systemically, it's still a lot of racial disparities in regards to education, in regards to wealth, in regards to health, housing, things of that nature. Those type of systemic social problems and ills do exist, and they're very prevalent here. And now we have a huge prevalent drug problem in regards to fentanyl. So I've seen like I feel that at one point, and maybe can go back to that, but excuse me, at one point, our our state or our city was very progressive when it came to healthcare, when it came to education, when it came to social services. I think we still have those things in place, but it's just because of the huge influx. I think it's just we didn't know how. It's just a big gap, a big huge gap in regards to people of color
Mm,
in the white community here.
mm, mm. I want to, well, first, what I would like to do is just number one, just comment on that fact of what people have to understand. And, of course, a lot of my listeners, they definitely understand in terms of with the systemic racism. But for those people who are like just still trying to grapple with that and just really understand in terms of like, okay, here it is, we have diversity here, right? People, just because of the fact they may see different folks from different cultures all together, then people think that, well, things are turning around, right? Things are getting better. And we have people from this culture. You go to school, you have schools, and you got folks who are African, or folks who are, like you said, American Indian, Muslim. You got these different religions and ethnicities. However, we still have that systemic issue.
Yeah,
There's still the practices that are like inculcated in the society that is there. And that's why, again, when I talk about real reading talk, talking about the real systemic issues, getting to the core, how we say real talk,
yeah,
no sugarcoating, right? No chaser, because we
right.
got to deal with those issues. And that's the big problem why we have these issues in terms of high levels of illiteracy. And just like you said with the fentanyl,
Mm-hmm.
issue, and all the other health disparities, food deserts, all of this type of stuff that
Absolutely.
still is in play today in 2024.
Yes.
So I'm glad that you broke that down for us.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna just tell you, just to keep it real 100, when it comes to Minnesota, the first thing just
Yeah.
come to my
Everybody
mind.
knows about us is George Floyd. Yeah.
Right,
Mm.
and I was even gonna say just like on a right George Floyd, but I was gonna say though even prior to that, that lynching, in terms of like the entertainment piece. So that what was coming to my mind, of course, you got Prince, you know what I mean? So I was thinking about that's the things that I would think about before in terms of Minnesota. Like I didn't know too much about Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
So and I actually I did start learning though, like, within the past couple of years. Of course, I'm talking about in the past, that's what I knew about Minnesota. Of course, now as of recently, I did learn about more of the
Mm.
influx of Somalians who are living there,
Yeah.
so I'm glad that brought that up. Very, very important for people to know.
Yeah. It's a huge racial divide. Even with the
Mm-hmm.
like we're talking about today with
Yeah.
reading, literacy, and
Yep.
education. It's really yeah, it's really sad. I would say like in the cities it's the racial divide, but then in the rural communities it's because
Mm-hmm.
it's rural. So some of those issues are in the rural communities, but I don't really know much about rural Minnesota, to be honest with you. I don't think I'll be mess with rural
No, I
Minnesota.
understand.
But they, in that sense, like I would say that the rural, there's also the same systemic issues, but not necessarily around race in rural Minnesota. So yeah,
Gotcha.
it's really prevalent here.
Mm.
I would say every month I participate with Dr. Artika Tynan in her literacy program, and
Mm-hmm.
we go to the library, and she has free books for the community,
Yeah.
with books that have representation that look like, us, that you would see a book with, and then as well as the authors that write the books, people of color, just so people can see that, like I think too here growing up there wasn't this diversity. So growing up, we didn't see, outside of, like, I would say my family and in the black community, we really
Mm-hmm.
didn't see that, that black people were educated, or that they had good jobs, or they had
Mm.
money, own a home, things of that nature, because of that huge racial divide in the numbers. But now that we have the numbers, I think there's still access to, we have access to a good education. We have access to good jobs. We have access to social programs. But however, there's still something's not right with the system. I would say that like 50% of I don't know the numbers pretty much with like literacy and reading, but there's a strong like prison. I mean, uh,
We have correlation.
school to prison pipeline.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's like, especially with our African American men,
Yeah.
it's like it's really sad, and very tragic. And then there's this huge homeless
Mm.
problem, where you would say, like, I would say, like, St. Paul is in the county of Ramsey. So there's like 50% of the adults that are homeless, identify as African American.
Mm.
So yeah,
You said 50%.
50% of adults that are homeless
Yeah,
in
50%.
Ramsey County identify as African American.
Oh my God.
And I just think but there's a lot of, things that with prayer, I think that will solve all our problems. But it's really sometimes sad to see, and so I think that personally, I just I'm not a grew up, but my background in education is like I got a degree in biology from Agnes Scott College in Decatur, Georgia. And at that time I was like, I'm gonna be a doctor. But a medical doctor. So now I'm gonna be a different doctor, God
Right.
willing, inshallah. But and then I came back to Minneapolis, and I got my master's in health and human services administration.
Okay.
So after that, I just kind of just stayed in the social service. I worked for different counties. I worked in adoptions and guardianship. I worked like in foster care. I've worked
Mm.
in child protection services. I've worked in like developmental disability services. And so
Okay.
at my last job, that's why I just started in 2017, the summer 2017, I started to get my doctorate.
Oh,
I was like, okay, I want to get this more so because at one point I was working, like maybe almost 3 years, I taught English in Saudi Arabia. So, I was able to do that. And so I'm like, okay, how am I going to get back there? You got to
okay.
be competitive. You have to
Mm.
have, your credentials. So I was like, I'm going
Okay.
to go get a doctorate degree. So
Mm.
I started my doctoral journey in July of 2017. And it is in organization development and change management. And so it's more so like looking at organization, how do you fit in, diagnose the organization, dealing with organization designs, maybe some type of problems, leadership, teams. So it's just a variety of different things that you can focus on. And so some of it is, human resources, some of it is diversity and education, diversity and equity, inclusion, things of that nature. But so after I started doing that, and at the time, like I feel that I was at this county position for like maybe going on 4 years.
Mhm.
So I was applying to be a supervisor. And I was just like, kind of just got fed up with just being passed along, like, or overlooked for my skills. I'm not given, but I'm like, okay, at this point, I'm getting my doctorate. So I'm more educated than everybody at this table. Or
Mm.
not, maybe I don't have the experience, but I have the capability to learn, you know.
Yeah.
So I just started like, okay, I want to do something different. So there was different grant opportunities or different contract opportunities out there. So I just started my own business, Shakir Consulting Services. And this is year 5. And I got my first contract with Ramsey County. And we provide waiver case management for the disabled and the elderly. So it's pretty much what we do is we coordinate services for the elderly and disabled to live independently in their homes or in the community. So I think that some people have heard like a PCA service. Um, so personal care assistance, like there's homemaking services, there's like the home delivered meals, things of that nature. So that's our like I think I would say our bread and butter program. But I going back to like the educational journey. So I started in 2017 and then COVID hit. Well, what can I do for a dissertation? Because what did I relate to in the coursework that I learned? I don't know. I didn't really have anything, but I know that I'm very passionate about Islam. I'm very passionate about being a Muslim, very passionate about educating others about being Muslim. And a lot of times I get mistaken as being Somali or or if I'm not Somali, then they're like, "Are you a Roma?" which is Ethiopian. So they go down the line.
Wow.
And I'm
Wow.
like, well, I'm American, I'm black, I'm
Yeah.
African American, and then people still don't understand that. And it's so funny because I was like saying like, oh, the Somalis got here in 1991, and so like I oftentimes I get mistaken as being Somali or either I'm Ethiopian or from an immigrant, versus
Mm-hmm.
like my family's been here since 1799, like we're enslaved Africans.
Mm.
And so and the Somalis haven't been, they came here in 1991. So, which I'm happy for because, like I said, there's more Muslims here, there's more diversity here.
Mm-hmm.
But you oftentimes like, okay, why aren't I recognized? Or not necessarily recognized, but you get tired of explaining who you are,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and who your
Mm-hmm.
background is. So, when I was thinking about my dissertation topic, I was like, okay, I'm very passionate about Islam. I'm very passionate about being Muslim. Um, what can I do that I can also identify with my dissertation? Because you want something that you're interested in, you want to be something that you can be good at. So I thought of the topic Muslim American women leaders who are descendants of slavery. And so myself, even so, it's kind of like I'm studying myself too. And my sisters mirror me. It's going to be a mirror thing because it's what we all experience. That's what my research is going to be about. What is our lived experience
Mm.
as Muslim American women leaders who are descendants of slavery? Because it's different.
Mm-hmm.
We have three, and we have more identities, but the three that I'm focusing on is Muslim,
Mm-hmm.
American, African American, and as well as being a woman. So what does that all look like? How do those integrate
Mm-hmm.
with one another? So it's exciting and a lot of work too, because the topic is new. So it's a lot. It's been a
Mm.
lot. It's been a while, long time. Like I said, COVID got in the way.
Mm-hmm.
Starting our own business got in the way. Um, but now I gotta really hone down and get this get this paper out there.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
wow. And
absolutely.
and then the fact, so let walk us through in terms of number one, how long does it take to get your doctorate? Because you
Okay,
said you started in 2017.
correct.
Was that like a literally a straight through? It wasn't like no gaps. Like you start and
No
that's how that
gaps.
works.
Yeah, it depends on the person's program. I kind of chose my program because it was like I would say easier, like to get into, easier like the courses. So my coursework was only 2.5 years.
Okay.
So I was done, like I said, by December 2019. I was done with all my courses. I had
Okay.
nothing, all my coursework was done. So
Okay.
then it took my exam, everything like that.
Okay.
But then you start your dissertation. And so some of my colleagues were done like I would say May 2020, like maybe a year, or maybe less than a year after they're done with their course. So depending on where you're at, what kind of help you get, you
Okay.
know. But like with COVID, having a family,
Yeah.
things of that
Okay.
nature, all
Okay.
that was on the back burner, you know. But
Right.
then plus the idea of having something that's never been done before. So I had to create a lot of the knowledge out there. I had to pull from this resource, pull from that resource. Also a lot of reading.
Mm.
I'm a slow writer. I take time to develop my thoughts. Like I'll think about something, I'm like, oh, so then I'm like, okay, I gotta go read this article. I gotta find
Mm.
it in that article. This is what I want to say. So I gotta find it in this article. I gotta take from this resource. Gotta run it by my editor. You know, so I'm
Right.
just kind of meticulous and very, very um, I would say kind of perfectionist. But then at one point now I'm like, I have to finish like
Yeah.
regardless, it don't have to be like 100% the best, but I got to be finished, you know.
Yeah.
So it depends. Some people take forever. Some people don't ever graduate. They just get their all but dissertation, like they have their doctorate, so to speak, or at least the credentials, but you didn't finish your dissertation. So mine will be about
Mm.
7 years. It would have taken me, but it doesn't have to be that long.
Okay.
You know, it doesn't have to
Okay.
be. Mine didn't include in an intern. Some people might have an internship. Some people may have to do some specialized research, but mine was just pretty much just the coursework, and
Mm-hmm.
then you do your dissertation and you're done. Also, my program, we were the last cohort, so cohort 10 was the last cohort, so the program doesn't exist anymore at the University of St. Thomas in St.
Okay.
Paul, Minnesota.
Mm.
But most of I would say there's about out of all of us that I forgot how many there was of us, but out of all of us, I'd say there's maybe like 4 or 5 of us left that have to graduate.
Mm.
Yeah,
Wow. Wow. This is I'm learning so much. First of all, I didn't know that in terms of so a person they finish their coursework, but then you said they don't do because I know I've heard the term defending your dissertation.
right, right.
So, but you could still be considered a doctor if
Well,
you
they
don't.
what they say
Okay.
is like
Okay.
you're not really a doctor, but
Oh,
they
okay.
put like some people will put like, oh, all but dissertation, like ABD, like all but dissertation. They may say like, oh, doctoral
Oh.
candidate, all but dissertation, or
Oh,
you
okay.
know, they some of it just might be a personal thing. Like I did do my coursework, and they might
Okay.
have it on their resume, but um
Hmm.
they may not ever graduate, but you technically aren't a doctor until you do defend that dissertation, finish
Okay.
that
Okay.
paper.
Right. Okay. Okay. And
Yeah,
so,
get it
and I,
published. Yeah.
oh, go ahead. Say that last part. No, say
No,
what
I
you.
was just saying get it published, but yeah,
Mm. And see, and this is something that I wanted you to explain, and you did it very well because number one, I had no clue. And then number two, this is something for, my listeners out there. If this is something that you're interested in, now you get the inside look, from somebody who has explained you're actually still going through the process and
yes,
explaining how that works. And then just like I'm like, I would have never I never even thought about it. And I guess again, like you talk about in terms of interest, like, because number one, I never thought about I would want to become, get a PhD. I'm like, man, that's a whole bunch of school. I'm like, I got my bachelor's, I'm good. I'm
yeah,
like, I'm
yeah,
straight. So but for those of you like folks like yourself in that category, that's y'all on that high level, y'all putting in that work for real. And then even with the fact, so even like you said, so you can actually like create your own, I guess, what am I trying to say? I guess your own lane, if you will, like in
yes,
terms of what you want to get your doctorate in.
yeah,
That is like so like wow. So oh my goodness. And
yeah.
so
There's a lot of programs out there, and so like I said, when I was thinking about taking this journey, I'm like, well, where
yeah.
do I go? Like, there's a lot of universities, and so like University of St. Thomas is a private, small private Catholic school. But like I said, and I looked at their different programs,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
it was just easier to get in. Like there was no like you didn't have to take an entrance exam, you didn't have to
Okay.
have any references. The only thing we did is we
Mhm.
had to write a project, and then we
Mhm.
had to like have an interview.
Okay. Okay.
Some schools like the University of Minnesota, which is
Mm,
like I think is like the third largest university in the country,
okay.
close to it. It's like a little city, its own city. Like,
Wow.
but like when I was looking at different programs there,
Yeah.
it's more. It was just like you had to take an entrance exam, the GRE.
Okay. I heard of
It's
that.
very, very,
Mhm.
it's very,
Very rigorous.
very rigorous. It's
Okay.
like, yeah, it's competitive and so to speak in regards to getting in. You know, like
Mm.
they like. So I'm like, well, if I gotta do all this just to get in the program, you know, like who knows what would happen afterwards?
Man, oh my goodness. That well, look, listen. I'm glad I like your methodology. You like, okay, I'm gonna work smarter, not harder. Okay. Like you know
Right,
what you want to do. You know,
right,
you're like, listen, I'm gonna take this route. If I know this is gonna get me there quicker, it's not a matter of intellect because you clearly have it. And for you to even just with this lane, I want to um with the aspect of you bringing up the as you call the triple threat, right? You know, you're Muslim, you're black,
yeah,
and a woman.
yeah,
Like,
triple threat.
yes, yes, there you go. I love it. Y'all
Yeah,
see, I got my guess. You know what? It's a little too close to the camera. It lets
okay.
you might want to pull it back. Oh
Yeah, I
man.
didn't know how to get so close, but
Yeah,
anyway,
I
that's
know.
fine.
It's so what I'm gonna do is
You
I'm gonna
can
have
show yours.
you actually put the link. So you know,
Okay,
send me the link so then I can put that in the description so folks can go you have your website, right?
I do, but I
Okay.
also have it on Amazon, so I'm trying to get that together, like
Oh, okay.
so it can ship from Amazon.
Oh,
So I'm
okay.
still working on that project, but yeah, it's on Amazon, but it's yeah,
That is so phenomenal.
yeah,
That is phenomenal. Because again, like I was telling everybody in the beginning, how we connected, because you reached out to me asking to be someone who was part of your research, one of the
right.
participants. You know, I fit the category, right? I was
Yes,
just
yes,
like,
you do put together for it.
I
It
was
was amazing. Yeah, I was just so
like,
so honored to have you.
oh, alhamdulillah. I was an honor. It was more of an honor, trust and believe that you even thought about, asking me. I was just like really, really humbled by that. And just again, just understanding that lane. And I would like to I want to ask another question in regards to that. And then I'm gonna go into, I want to talk about just, the different aspects of how you grew up in terms of literacy and what kind of home environment. But I do want to know because I know you said in terms of not really a lot of research, like what, when you say not a lot of research, like can you explain a little more about that in terms of
So, like, actually, like my degree is a doctorate degree, but it's called a doctorate of education versus the doctor of philosophy. So, like, if it was a PhD, it's a more of a I would say the PhD is more up here. I mean, a doctor is a doctor. I take it, but the PhD is kind of like the leaders are more of the Harvard, type of degree. So it does
oh,
entail like more research based. Like you have to. I think when you first even go into programs like that, you have to have some type of like whatever you're gonna do for your research right away. And I think throughout the process, you do research regards to your dissertation topic. Ours more so was the educational thing, so more learning about these processes, learning about things,
mm,
having practicums. So we had more practicums versus doing like research from the beginning. So we had like our own practicum where I was able to do a practicum for my nonprofit, and I was able to interview, and it's kind of like how piggybacked a little bit how I got my dissertation topic, where I was able to interview different women of color that had nonprofit organizations for girls or for
mm,
women.
okay.
And so that was really, I felt that was really, it really resonated with me. I was able to identify with that. It was really a good
Mhm,
thing to see, like, okay, this is the things I need to do
mhm,
to start this nonprofit, or these are the things I need to do to get like board members or to get uh, participants or whatever. But what did you do? So that was really great. I interviewed three different women,
mhm,
um, and then we had a practicum where I'm trying to remember. Oh, we had a self one where it was a group. So I was able to go to a nonprofit organization in Minnesota with I think it was 3 other colleagues,
Mm-hmm.
and we helped them with their strategic planning.
Mm. Okay.
So that was another like kind of an educational thing versus like researching something. And then our third practicum was like a global one.
Okay.
So we, as a class, we went to Mexico,
Okay.
to Monterrey, Mexico, and we met with a school,
Mm-hmm.
and that was there that was kind of having some different organizational changes and things of that nature. So we went to this school and we helped them like with the org design, like, okay, we're having this problem, we're having that problem, and like, how can we kind of help them like reorganize their management, their organization, how can they
Mm.
be one versus like this is the lower school, this is the middle school, this is the upper, the high school. How can
Okay.
we function as one school? So we
Okay.
worked with them. We also had different speakers with I think it was the University of Monterey. So they had professors, they have a program there. So we worked with them. So yeah, I would say that my program was designed around more of an educational focus, but with the
Mm.
PhD, it's more you just do a lot of research focus. So I don't know how
Okay.
that would look, but I'm sure it's more intense.
Woo.
But because of my, interviewing the women for my nonprofit, it just
Mm-hmm.
kind of like I was like, what am I gonna do? I kept on thinking like, what can I do? And how can I put Islam in this? And so then that's how I came up with the topic about Muslim American women leaders who are descendants of slavery. And so, and just to hear your stories and um, your experiences,
Mm-hmm.
and to write about it.
Wow. Wow. That is just super phenomenal. And the reason why too is because you are actually number one educating our audience out here on how it looks when you have to do a lot of research. And just like how you mentioned earlier in the conversation, that entails a lot of reading.
Yes.
And I think about how in our community, in the Black community, that is something again, when it comes to reading, it's like when folks get, you got folks who will get turned off because they're like,
Yes.
man, I gotta do all of this reading or whatever, you know what I'm saying? I ain't trying to do that. That ain't my thing, just like I had put a post, because I like to post snippets of my podcast.
Mhm.
And just like I talked about, our nonprofit, that's what we do. We distribute books. And
Right.
there'll be some adults like, oh no, I'm good. I don't read. And I'm not saying it's a lot of adults who do that.
Right. Right.
There's definitely some, and these is folks that look like us. And I'm like, huh? Like, why? What's up with that? And I'm like, again, because the whole attitude when it comes to reading, a lot of times reading is not introduced as a young person, which is a segue into what we're about to go into now and talk about how your upbringing was in terms of literacy. But reading was not inculcated in
Mhm.
our communities when we were young. And so if
Yeah.
it's not inculcated in the community, you're not seeing because for somebody to say that as an adult, you clearly did not grow up around folks reading. I mean,
Right.
that's an obvious thing, right? I don't think I got to do some research in that. You know what I'm saying? Allah knows
Right.
best, God knows best. Like you clearly did, unless it was again, maybe it was some negative things in terms of with reading, which I love to always talk about when it comes to us being told to read. A lot of times it's always associated with, okay, you better read to pass this test. You better read
Mm.
to get these good grades. It's not the pleasure of reading, not the cultivation of the love of literacy. That
Right.
is not put in the foundation a lot of times in our Black families. So I want you to speak to that.
Okay.
Tell us how you grew up in terms of the literacy environment in your home.
Okay. And I want to take it back a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because, as we know, it was illegal for us to read. If you get caught, you could, who knows what you would,
Yeah, what you
what
would
kind of
receive.
punishment you would receive,
Okay.
but it was illegal to read and write. However, my family, my maternal grandmother's side, um, are from Jenkinsville, South Carolina, and they were called the Martins. And their mother, um, there was one descendant that came from Africa, named Tracy, and she had one. As we know, she had one daughter named Katie, but Katie had at least, excuse me, at least 7 children, and about 6 of them were from the slave owner. And so traditionally, as we know, like a lot of times families weren't kept together. They were sold here, sold there, torn apart. But the Martins, they were kept together and they grew up and they were taught how to read and write. They were business people. They sold cotton. They ended up buying property all over. So, but why they're able to do that is because they were able to read and write. They were taught to read and write. So I would say, on my so education is very important to our family. On both of my parents' sides, education is very important. On my father's side, my grandmother had 13 children. Now my grandfather, granddaddy Edward, and then my grandmother Catherine, neither of them went to college. Granddaddy Edward, they lived on a farm. So granddaddy Edward, he maybe had like a 6th grade education, but he always worked. Grandma, I think grandma finished high school, but she maybe took a college class here and there. But all of their children went to college and graduated from college because education. They made sure education is the key. That's what they knew that was the way for us, coming out of slavery, coming out of Jim Crow. That's the way for us to have something for ourselves is through education, which is, and the foundations of education is reading. So I would say growing up, again, my parents put those values in me. Education and our siblings was the education. What I remember about reading more so would be like my parents we had the Encyclopedia Britannica. I think like almost every Black family had that Encyclopedia Britannica. I don't remember picking it up though.
I love my people. That's
right.
Can't nobody. We're gonna make sure you have the encyclopedia in your house.
Actually told us this story that my uncle, my dad's baby brother, that he said that his mom, my grandma, used to make them read that, and that's why people on that generation are so brilliant, because they didn't have this internet and these phones, and they really did the reading, they really did the research, they really had to learn.
They did.
We have shortcuts, we have different ways to help us learn, different tools and stuff that we can access, but they really had, the they really did it. So I remember having that. I may have picked up once or twice, but books everywhere. We had all kinds of books. My parents were very came from the 60s, the Jim Crow era, so they were very like the pro-Black. That's what their orientation was. That like they went to HBCUs.
Oh wow.
So that was kind of their foundation. Even though we came here to Minnesota, but that's their foundation. So I seen those things. I knew the importance of Malcolm X. I heard about Malcolm X. I heard about Marcus Garvey growing up. I heard about Frederick Douglass growing up. So that was kind of our foundational thing with education and reading. I don't for some reason I don't know, my memory is very bad, but I don't really remember much about I'm sure that I did see them reading, but I would say more so is the importance of instilling in us education was one of our values, our family values. And so for me, I feel that my husband and I passed that on to our children. In regards to I have more of a memory in regards to them in reading. So all of my children, I made sure that they had gone to a reading tutor. I think in the beginning, they're very intelligent, but I don't know. I think that just not necessarily being behind, but I wanted to make sure that they had that foundation. So all 3 of them, I made sure they went to some type of reading tutor in the beginning. They didn't go far. I think that maybe maybe not past 2nd grade or 3rd grade, because by that time they're like, I don't want to go, the tutor. I'm fine, So at least I got them some type of good foundational skills.
Come on.
And my son, he's an adult now. He's about 28, but he decided not to go to college, and he also throughout school he had was in special education. But
Mhm.
the only reason why he did well is because he could read. If he couldn't read, then he wouldn't have gotten any type of education because he wasn't that good in math. But he could read.
Mm.
Because of that, that made him he was able to thrive
Come
and
on.
graduate. He was able to he used to like to read on his own. He always had books. They used to always love to get book orders. All my kids used to always love to get book orders. I'm like, I'm gonna break the bank, you know. But they
In a
love to
good
get their
way.
own books.
Shoot.
They love to go to the library. My next oldest is 22, and
Mm-hmm.
she is graduating from college. And but she was very, I think, smart in regards to like liking to read. They didn't really like school, but they enjoyed reading and they enjoyed the social time at school.
Right.
And then now I have a almost 11-year-old,
Okay.
and every day I gotta go to the library. Almost every day she loves to read. I'm like, I'm tired
Oh.
with I gotta keep up with the books. Like, oh my God, you have your books due. Like, why you get all these books from the library? You know you gotta take them back and we're gonna lose them or whatever. But like
Mm.
almost every day, mommy, can we go to the library? Can we go to the library?
So awesome.
So it's very important. So I just feel that if they didn't and like in that youngest, I don't know what it is. Like her kindergarten teacher was like old school
Yeah.
reading,
Yeah.
etc. But it took her a little bit to really like catch on, and she was like, "Oh, it doesn't mean that they're not going to learn. It's just that sometimes kids they don't grasp it."
Thank you.
So by the time she got to first grade, she was kind of a little rocky, shape, you know. But like I said, I was
Yeah.
making sure she had that tutoring,
Mm-hmm.
and I even enlisted with her the sister Jahada reading a certainty in Detroit. And she after having like, I don't know, 4 or 5 sessions, they just clicked. And Jahada was like, "Oh, you have the book that I use. Why aren't you teaching?" I was like, "Jahada, I need you guys because the kids they're more receptive, to others than they are to their parents. They be like,
Right. You
whatever.
already know.
So after that book, she was like really, after those sessions with Sister Jahada, she was really, doing well. And ever since. Like she's just been an independent reader. She's gotten skipped up in her reading groups, and now I think she's like I know she's at reading level, but she might even be a little bit above her grade.
Hmm.
So
I would definitely surmise that.
yeah,
Wow.
so it's very important. Like at a young age, you see your kids struggling, just to get them the skills that they need. You have to, give them books, and like she goes with me to the library every month for Dr. Artika Tyner's um, events. And even
Hmm.
like I don't read that much because I really don't have time. Like I do read for my, like I'm reading for my dissertation, or I might
Right.
read like the book I'm reading now is like I'm taking like a class, like a reminder class about the names and attributes of Allah. So things like that. But I see books, I'll be grabbing them because they're free. And I like to have them on my bookshelf for one day when I do have the time,
Yes.
or I might need to reference something,
Hmm.
etc. But my goal is after I get this doctorate is to really internalize it and start like doing more research and just becoming more literate myself because I really feel that if I um, read more books,
Mm.
then I would be more versed and I'll be more literate myself, for my own like, okay, I need to match that doctorate. What's coming out my
Wow.
mouth? I need to match that doctorate. But I think I do well, written wise. Like that's my strength, I think, and
Hmm.
like being able to like take grasp concepts and ideas. My brain functions that way. But
Hmm.
I do need to start, I think, incorporating that reading every day that will really bring me up here.
Okay. But listening to you, I know folks are probably listening like, really? Like, okay, is well the research that you putting in terms of getting your doctorate. I mean, I would say that qualifies with as you being somebody who's really literate. I mean, just you already said like early in the conversation, it takes a lot of reading. So
Yes.
I just, I understand. I know how it is, how we are when it comes to ourselves, right? We can definitely, which is good, what I'm saying, a lot of times to critique ourselves in a way where we're like, okay, you know what, I need to be better at this. But also too, and I know you're not beating yourself up, but I'm just saying, like,
Mm,
literally, what you just talked about, you've explained how somebody is very well read. For you to put yourself in position, you said, I'm gonna be dedicated. I mean, that's a commitment to sit
yeah.
up here and say, I'm gonna do all this research, and then you literally are getting your doctorate, and your focus actually is on something that I know I had never heard of anybody talking about that. Now I've heard about that, or like even I remember, like I talked to you about in terms of just, first becoming Muslim and everything. I understood,
Hmm.
like, okay, yes, you stand out, what I'm saying, more so. Now here we already black, what I'm saying, and of course being women and
Right,
Muslim, it's like, again, that triple threat, right? You come in
right,
there like bam, bam, bam. Okay, yeah, you know what I'm
right,
saying, and it can be, for some folks that feels kind of it's harder. You know what I'm saying,
right,
especially if you like. It depends on what kind of you in a corporate, space or whatever the case may be. But again, just to go circle back to what I was saying in terms of with you, you have articulated very well on number one, the research that it takes, and then the time and the commitment. And
yes,
that's the thing that people have to understand when it comes to reading. Like, it will become more of a second nature when you put that foundation. And I love how you talked about how you got your kids a reading tutor, even though it wasn't like a thing you were saying that it was, you saw like these struggles like that, but you just wanted to make sure it was solid.
yes.
That,
Because that's the only way they would do well in school, because you have to be able to read any subject. You have to be able to understand and comprehend, like, okay, I have a science course, a science test or whatever it is. You have to be able to read.
yes.
And so I'm like, I just had to make sure. And still, like,
Mhm.
to this day, like my daughter's in sixth grade now, but I think this summer, I mean, she just started school last week.
Mm.
But I'm gonna take her to the library and be like, you gonna go to after school tutoring for the, homework, because
Yeah.
you need them study skills now.
Okay.
Because everything is on these tablets. There's
Yes.
no, we need to go back to the old school stuff, because now everything's on the tablet.
Yep.
So it's like they learn how to read, like, do stuff on there. So what happens when you get bored? You're gonna
Yep.
go on that tablet and do something else.
Thank you.
And I need her to focus. So I'm gonna start taking her to the library
Mm.
again, and
Mm.
like, let's sit down and let's do this, do your homework here and then be done.
That right there is an excellent, excellent idea. I love how you dropping these gems and jewels. This is great. And this is exactly what I wanted to see come to life rather on this podcast, because I talk about how there are the issues and what we see in the community, but I also am bringing solutions. And that's what I do when I'm intentional about the guests that I bring on. Like, our community needs to hear from people like you, more folks like you who are in that work, especially doing like a deep dive, like something going to get your doctorate degree. That's a deep dive. Okay, that research beyond. I mean, reading this, I mean that, but that's the type of stuff that we need to hear. We need to normalize, and so that,
Yes,
you know what I mean. We need to normalize that big time.
right,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yes. So what I wanted to actually do, because I know we're coming close to the time of
Mhm.
our ending of this phenomenal conversation, y'all. I love, see, y'all don't, this is my happy place. This is where I like part of how I'm able to relax out, because I love having these conversations about literacy and empowering the Black community through literacy. So I
Mm.
want you, if you could share with us three ways in which people could start to cultivate that love of literacy in their homes. All right, can you give us some three tips?
I would just say, like, just traditional stuff, like when they're little kids or even when they're in the womb. Read books to your children in the womb. They know your voice. They know. I think that will start the love right there with books. But just hearing your voice, hearing those stories, that's where their education really starts, is in the womb.
Yeah.
So start there. Also, again, like, and everybody knows about this, but I don't know if they really do it. And that reminds me, I did this with my children. I would read them books before they go to bed. The kids love a story, but they don't want to go to bed ever. They don't want to, whatever. Maybe I need to start doing that again with my little one, so she'll go to bed. But I would say, read those storybooks, before bed, even if it's 5 minutes. That, and even the old school books, like, what were the ones, like, Good Night
I
Moon.
was just thinking that. Good night,
All those, like, those are just the, the old school ones because they're like, even the Dr. Seuss, even though Dr. Seuss got a history, but still
I know, right?
there's some
You're
there's
right.
some things there that you can learn because it's like the
Hmm.
rhyme, the rhythm thing,
Real talk.
how
Hmm.
the words sound, how do they flow. So those type of books, like the Dr. Seuss books, Cat in the Hat, those are old school. I know that the kids don't know about those things because they're old school, but I think just incorporating some of those old school books,
Hmm.
even and then also incorporating books that of now that we have them that look like them
Come on.
about their hair. If you have little
Yes.
girls, even boys too, but about your hair is beautiful, your skin color, like we come in all shades.
Thank
Those
you.
type of things I used to try to buy for my children and read to them all the time. You
Mm.
know, um, even something about uh, our ancestors or whatever, but just anything. Even don't think that because something might be advanced that they still won't benefit from it. They will
I
still
love that.
benefit. Even if it's your own book, if it's something that's not too adult, you can still read that to them.
That's true.
Um, the kids like graphic novels. I don't really like them, but still, is the book. So let them do that.
Hmm.
Magazines.
Hmm.
Um, the kids love National Geographics. My
Okay.
kids love National Geographics. Like, so they even have stuff
Oh,
for them, their own National Geographic magazines and stuff like that as a young
yeah.
child. Like, so just things like that. If you can afford to get the little book orders, or even
Hmm.
the school allows you to nowadays check out books
Mm.
and things of that nature, but just like make allow them to to start having their own relationship, like we try to teach them their own, like in Islam we try to teach them have their own relationship with God, with Allah. The
Hmm.
same thing with books, so
Yes.
they'll have that, that's a, like you said, normalcy. That's normal, you
Yeah.
know so I think that would be what I would suggest.
Yeah, that excellent. And again, these are simple suggestions. And I
Hmm.
always make sure that I ask my guests that. And it's so funny. I mean, and I want people to just pay attention, see the theme, right? I ask all of my guests that. What are your tips? And 9 times out of 10, they're all going to say, making sure that you are, reading to your children before bed, or, even if it's for a few minutes. I remember, one of my guests talking about that before, or, making sure that they're going to the library. And I love how too, because, of course, I'm always going to promote making sure that we have books that represent our folks. But I love
Yes.
how you did talk about and bringing up the books from the past, because a lot of times, just like we talked about the rhythm, the rhyme of Dr. Seuss, but then even too, just a lot of the lessons I
Yes.
think about too, that were taught in a lot of those different books. And, a lot of those children's books, people, even as an adult, I still enjoy reading
Yeah.
those children's books. It's a
Yeah.
lot that you can learn from reading a quote unquote children's book,
Right.
even
And
with
the
some of the language. I know you've seen that,
exactly.
right? Some of the
Exactly.
vocabulary. It's like, wait a minute, hold up, I gotta. Okay, let me look this
Yeah.
up. This
And
is
it's true. And there's a divide between the vocabulary. Like I'll see, like, and that's even including my children growing up. Like
mm-hmm.
you see, white kids, and they'll have like, you like, what? And they're very well versed.
Uh-oh.
Like
You
I don't
sorry,
know
you
that.
sound muffled. I'm gonna have you
Okay,
you
I'm
see you
sorry.
sound
I'm just being
that's
real quick.
okay. That's okay.
You know,
I gotta shift my
like,
leg. I'm sitting wait, one
when
say it one more time. I gotta
and I was
shift my
saying, like,
leg too. Woo.
like
Okay.
how old is this child? They have a vast, their vocabulary is very vast, but I think it's because of their family. They may use big words with them. They, don't be afraid to do that. Like, don't be, like, even though our kids are kids, but don't start like, oh, making that goo goo gaga sound with them when they're at a certain age. Like, teach them real words, have real conversations with them.
Yes.
Sometimes my 10-year-old shocks me. I'm like, where'd she learn that word from? Because they're
Wow.
listening, they hear you. Here in Minnesota, we have, I don't know if you have that where you are in Cleveland, but they have like a little, it's called like a little library, like so they'll have like these little libraries. You can just take and borrow a book and share a book. So things of that nature, just figure out just different ways. Like I know we have too many books, I don't have to give them away, but just really incorporate reading and foundational stuff because the kids don't have the same life skills or any skills that we used to have.
Yes.
They're not being taught those things anymore. So all this foundational, you know, um, remedial, so to speak, we
Mm-hmm.
we they need that.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I'm gonna say something to that, and it's gonna segue into my second to my last question for you, which is when you talked about the little library. I have a quick little story with that because our organization, ABC Read, which is the nonprofit that I started 10 years ago, well, that's what we decided to do. We wanted to have a little library, but we didn't want to get it from because I think that what's it called, the little libraries, if I'm not mistaken, that's the name, and so they are an actual, I'm quite sure it's a trademark name or whatever the case. So we wanted to have our own name for our library. We actually had one built. So we had one in the community, put in the local park here in the city of East Cleveland. Okay. We had it put up in July of, I think this was is either 2022 or 2023. No, I think it was last July, if I'm not mistaken. And went up in July. We put on the side of it, Reading is Freedom. All right. And Reading is Freedom, for those of you who don't know, that's the brand. Then that's what I'm in the process of getting trademarked because I always wanted to, link that whole literacy to liberation. And so that's what we were calling the Reading is Freedom libraries. Okay. And our intent was to put books in there that majority represents the people that we serve in our community. We were able to do that. Alhamdulillah, all praises due to God. But I say it didn't last, sis, for maybe, I want to say it was like a month or two. Do you know, unfortunately, folks came. Somebody had took, I think, the light. We had a little light in there too. We was having it, trying to like really make it unique. We had a light in there so that it can shine, for at night, right? Somebody took the little light out. Then somebody took, I think, the glass part of the door out. Then they took the part of the door off. It was just like little by little. Then next thing you know, totally just destroyed it. I got it in my backyard still.
That is so unfortunate. That is so sad. Can't
That's
help nothing.
yep, yep. And you know what I said to that though, honestly, it just reminded me of how when you are in a community that has been distressed, folks who are just filled with trauma, self-hatred, that's what came to mind because you literally have to not want good for yourself to put out such vitriol to something that clearly is not hurting anybody, something that looks, it's positive. It looks, or even if you somebody who like, okay, yeah, I ain't studying them books, you know what I'm saying, whatever. You're not gonna, in your mind though, you're not gonna be like, okay, I'm about to just rip it up. Why you want to do that?
Right.
That's some deep rooted trauma. That's some issues you got with yourself. You can't tell me no different. And then I had
Yeah.
heard, because folks gonna talk. I heard that okay, I heard it was some teenagers, of course, who did this. You know what I'm saying? They would just come to the park and just doing all kind of, and I'm just like, but I will say this, the blessing out of it all, we were able to still give out 80 books because there were some kids across the street who would see me come and they literally would be looking out for me to come and
Oh,
replenish that library, honey. Them kids got them books, okay? They got
that
over
is
80
sweet.
books in their house.
That
So
is
I
sweet.
was like, I said,
So
y'all ain't about to steal all my joy. No, you ain't. The devil is a, I'm like, no, I'm so happy that those kids was able to get those books, and then of course, they saw, what I mean, what was going on or whatever the case. And I just wanted to, share that story, but how again with this, us talking about these issues, it's some deep rooted stuff, sis, that
yeah.
that we're battling. And I'm just glad, that you are on the front lines and you are out here making a difference in St. Paul in Minnesota. And I'm just super proud of your work and what you're doing. And I wanted you to share with us, number one, what book are you currently reading? And then my last question is, what does reading is freedom mean to you?
Okay. So
Yes.
I would say like the one book that I'm currently reading would be The Names and Attributes of Allah. I'm doing that a little bit because there's a class or a reminder that I started taking for that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then what does reading
What does reading is
freedom mean to
mean
me?
to you? Mm-hmm.
I, I guess I just have to again tie it back to the past and how it
Mm-hmm.
was illegal for us to read and write, you
Yeah.
know, and we were, and so once to be able to have that gift of reading, that ability to read, the ability to be literate, you're free
Mm-hmm.
because you can access everything. Like even like I was talking about in the before, like how like if you're able to read, you can do your science. But like even you can cook because you can read a recipe. You know, like it gives you life skills. It gives you freedom to learn, to show up, to navigate. I just feel it's a foundational thing skill to have for you as a person. To be able to interface with others, to have a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
to cook, to clean, to do anything that we do in life.
Mm.
So it's a freedom. I think it's makes helps you exist.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I absolutely love it. That's right. I love it. I appreciate you. Oh my goodness, so much. And one of the things I guess what I've been holding and taking my notes. Come on.
Yes.
Come on.
Now
Come
that for
on.
sure is on Amazon. Anybody can get that I have another journal to their blank journals. I have another journal, triple threat,
Yep.
and then I have the oppression free zone, and I just had a third journal that came out, oppression free zone organization.
Mm.
So I hope to have a third one, no, a fourth one coming. I have to have it by October
Okay.
for my trademark stuff. They're like, you got to do something else, something. So I'm gonna have I think another one in the a pressure free zone series coming out. I think it's gonna be a pressure free zone, either relationships or home. But
Mm.
they're blank journals. Like a lot when I first put them out, people were thinking like, and this is even my family, like, oh, where's your book? I'm like, it's not a book. It's just a journal, and there's some things that you can just use as writing prompts, but it's just a journal, you know. And but hopefully in the future I will, be at a place where I can write a book.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Go back.
no, okay,
Yep. Go back
okay,
to oppression free when you said what the name of the journal was, and then because you
okay.
got muffled. Yep.
Yeah, why is my mic? Okay.
Go
So I
back.
was saying that I hope to have I'm doing a pressure free zone. I'm trademarking that. And so I'm doing these journals right now, and it's
Okay.
there's writing prompts there and things of that nature for you to to kind of think and to write or to write anything you want in the book.
Mm-hmm.
But I eventually are in the journal. Eventually, I would like to have write a book, oppression free zone, organization, etc.
Mm.
Relationships or whatever. But that's my goal. Is to right now it's just a journal, just to get it out there,
Yeah.
and then in the future, when I'm able to have more time,
Mm-hmm.
then I will try to write a book. So like again, reading. If I don't know how to read, how am I gonna write a
Come
book
on.
or anything? So
Exactly. Well, I'm so glad. I appreciate you because I have been utilizing both your journals that you had gifted me. I thank you tremendously so much for your work, sis. You are an inspiration, and I'm so glad that the community has been able to gain wisdom from you and to learn from you. Because I know I was on here, and, I get all excited. I'm very animated, as you see. I get all pumped and all that. That's me. And so it's like when I hear stuff that's I know that it's going to take us to the next level and empower us. That's what I'm talking about. So I appreciate you being here today on Real Reading Talk. Thank you so much.
thank you, Sister Sasha, for having me, and you're an inspiration as well. And I really appreciate our time today. And you making this easy for me because, like I said, I was like, "Well, I'm a little nervous. I don't do
Oh, please don't.
um, it's the first time for everything. I need to get out of my comfort and really, start sharing with others.
Thank you. I appreciate you
So
so much,
thank you so
sis.
much for having me. I appreciate it.
And I want you and make sure too that you give me the information. So you just paste the link. so that I can just copy and paste it in the description. So for those of you who are looking for a journal, please make sure that you support this sister. If also with the shirts, the triple threat shirts, those are dope as well. Make sure that you go ahead and get your shirt as well. And so thank you so much. Once again, future Dr. Ayana Shakir. And everybody, again, I appreciate you all listening to this episode of Real Reading Talk. Again, my name is Ms. Seisha, and with Real Reading Talk, and discuss the real systemic issues that are at the very core, the very foundation, as to why we have low levels of literacy in the Black community and the ways in which we can combat these issues together. Thank you all, and remember to please keep reading for at least 30 minutes a day. And remember, reading is freedom. Peace.
Thank you.
Well, you guys, that episode for me, it was just on a whole nother level. And as you all know, I always talk about how I love learning and I love talking to people in our community who value literacy, value education. And it was just so refreshing to be able to have that phenomenal conversation with the future Dr. Ayana Shakir. And I hope that you all gained a lot of insights and gems and jewels that you could utilize and implement into your homes and your families, because we got to bring back that value of literacy that we were used to in our communities. That has to be, again, high on our value ladders, y'all. So, of course, I'm going to do a real quick housekeeping, right? So, again, I am a pre-K through fourth grade reading tutor. And if you are in need of a reading tutor for your baby, please go to my website, abclearntutoring.com. Click on the free reading assessment today. And yes, I tutor in person and online. And also go to our website, abcread.org. I'm the founder and executive director of ABC Read. Please go there to see the work that we've been doing in the community for 10 years and counting. And if you would love to donate to our organization, that would be extremely helpful. And of course, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Reading is freedom. All right. Reading is freedom is there for you to be able to get many different books that you are interested in listening to. Also, the podcast, of course, is going to be uploaded on there as well. So please make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that notification bell. All right. And of course, make sure that you share this podcast, which is going to be found on all the podcast platforms. And last but not least, reading is freedom. As you all see on the mug on my bookshelf, if you want that mug in your home, please make sure that you go to readingisfreedom.store. Got the read shirt on as well to go and grab your merch. Okay. And so I want to leave you guys with the book that I've been reading. I actually started this book called Ebony and Ivy. So that's one of the books that I've been reading. I believe I talked about that before. And that's a thick book. That's actually, that's not like a just, of course, it's a nonfiction that's very well researched and talking about the history of the universities and how they're deep rooted in our African enslaved ancestors building up these quote unquote Ivy League prestigious universities. Okay. So this is the book that I've been reading. And I want to just leave you all with the quote. I've said this plenty of times, and this is a quote that just came to my mind real quick, which is reading is not optional. And that was from our ancestor, Walter Dean Myers. All right. So I thank you all again for listening to another episode of Real Reading Talk. And remember to please keep reading for at least 30 minutes a day. And remember, reading is freedom.